And I'm going to start with a question for you, with it, to talk about performance management and performance DNA APIs. Who here knows what performance DNA is? Can I have a show of hands? Anyone know what it is? A little bit. A little bit. So we've got, that's good, because a fair part of this presentation is explaining what performance DNA is, and can help. So that's good. I'm glad I'm not talking to a load of people who know it already. So what we'll do today, we'll talk about what is performance management, and do an overview of performance DNA. And then later on, after about halfway through, we'll get into a bit more detail on how to get your data into performance DNA so you can really use it to drive your business and help make better decisions for you. First of all, let's look at the big picture. So this is an overview of Genesis's WFO workforce optimization solutions. They break into a number of different groups. Performance DNA falls into that training and skills management sector. It's all about making better use of your training budget. Everybody's got limited budgets. Everybody wants to get as much efficiency out of it as possible. Performance DNA is a really good way to try and achieve that. It helps you to target your training to the right people at the right time, give them exactly the right content, so that you're not giving everyone the same homogenized training program. Different people have got different needs, and performance DNA will help you understand that, and then help you to know, right, what should I do for this person at this time to have the best impact. I'd be very surprised if you've gone through this week without having seen this slide. This is the customer journey, the employee journey. And down at the very start here, performance DNA is at the very start of the employee journey. I actually dispute this. I think performance DNA fits all the way along this journey, and I think that it's not just a line. The journey loops back and goes round, and it's a cycle. Because you continually want to improve your employees, you want them to be moving forward to continue. It's not just a start-time process. But in this slide, performance DNA at the very start, it's about optimizing people's skills, understanding what they can do, what they're capable of now, and what they've got the potential to do later. Performance DNA can help with a number of different business objectives. So the first one we're talking about here is speed to competency, so getting new people on board, helping them get up to a level where they can contribute and be taking part and taking calls and dealing with contact as soon as possible, but also then keeping those skills relevant, helping people to stay trained up as they're doing their day-to-day job. They can also drive improvements to business performance, because you can look at who the high and low performers are and identify what makes those high performers good, and then try and target your training to the people who aren't necessarily doing as well at the moment, but could do with some assistance. And we also find that it helps employee engagement. People aren't just doing the same plan, doing training that's not relevant to them, not doing things that engage them. They're getting content that's useful for them, that's at their right level, and therefore they're much more engaged and much more likely to benefit from it. So a bit more now about some of the things you can do with PureConnect. So one of the things which you can do is build skills and capability assessments. So you can build surveys and questionnaires within Performance DNA that let you test and understand what people are capable of. There's a variety of different question types. You can set regular scheduled assessments, or you can do a specific one as a one-off around, say you've got a new program starting, you can understand where people are at for it. You can build this yourself in the tool. You can also link to other learning management systems if you want, but you've got the option. What PDNA is really about is understanding and giving people the understanding what people know already, and then helping them to learn new stuff. Another thing that Performance DNA is really good at is baselining and benchmarking of your performance, so you can understand, okay, what's the expected performance for an agent. Let's have a look, what does that look like? Let's set a threshold for that, and let's see how people compare against that. You can set different levels for different people, different experiences. You can set different thresholds as you wish, so you could say these are my high, medium, low performers. It's very flexible. You can choose how to do that. But then you can compare and contrast that and essentially on any different demographic group that you set up in the tool. So you could say, I want to compare business units or people who've got the same manager. You could say, I want to compare agents in London versus agents in Denver. As long as you've got the information around where people are structured, you can then drill down into that and look at trends and identify things that might help you understand what's going on with performance a bit more. Another part of the product is performance development reviews. So you can also set up within the tool what we call PDRs. And these are personalised plans with objectives for the users. Each person can have different objectives, so they can upload evidence to show what they're doing to achieve that. You can have manager-led assessments to show how they're progressing against their goals. And as you go through, when you do the assessments, you can see you can track progress over time on a matrix to see how people are progressing through different levels. Perhaps the main thing about Performance DNA that makes it different from other performance management systems is actionable insights. So it's not just about understanding who's doing what, it's also about suggesting actions and taking action to make the next step forwards. And that could be as simple as pushing out a piece of content on what we call a knowledge nudge to say, this person needs to learn something about this area, let me automatically push them this content so they can learn it. Or it could link in to scheduling some training or a coaching session so that you can actually have a face-to-face conversation with someone and help address their performance issues that way. Putting all these together, you effectively get a journey for an employee's development. You can understand what level they're at, you can track their progress, you can give them content, and pulling them all together, you've got the organisation, how their career is progressing, how they're doing, and seeing whether they're going forwards, backwards, how things are going. So, looking at it from a slightly different angle, these are four of the main areas of performance DNA. We just spoke about the DNA, or we haven't really spoken about DNA profile, we'll come to that in a moment. We've spoken a bit about building assessments and assessing content. Then the skills analysis is where we do some number crunching and we look out for correlations, so we try and identify are these things related, so are people who are particularly good at, who have particularly good average handling time, are they also good at getting excellent NPS scores? Or do they have better, if it's an outbound centre, maybe do they have better sales revenue? We can look at those things, we can identify the correlations and we can try and find the causation to say, oh, these are the things that lead to a good agent. So, onto DNA profiles. This is an example of a typical profile for a billing agent. And what we do is we build up lots of different blocks to build a rich profile of an agent. Because it's performance DNA, we talk about DNA strands and blending the strands and various things like that. But really what we're doing is we're building up different pieces of information and assigning them the weights and saying this is more important than this, and these are the things I think are important about this role. And so in a billing agent role, we've got these 6 things that we think are important. Starting from the bottom, so the work they do on calls, their average handling time, then some stats about how customers are perceiving them, and then some stuff that we might assess, so knowledge or learning credits that they might have achieved in another arrangement system, or things we know about assessments they've taken. And we pull those together in different strands or blocks, and then we can set thresholds for those. So we can say, oh, I think someone who's good at bills would score, I don't know, 63 or 70 out of 100, and you can colour code them and you can see different people at different levels. It gives you a very easy way to visually compare them. And it also allows us to roll up those strands into a total score that we call a DNA profile. So you can get a single score for your agents to say, yes, this person scores 83, this person scores 82, they're high performers, someone might be down to 30 or 40. And then you can look at the ones who aren't performing as well, drill down into that and say, okay, what's the cause of that? Let me see. And we might have a look at that a bit later as time permits. Here's an example where we're putting some colours on. So this agent here we're looking at has got the different colours represent different levels of competency. more to go. So here we've got this person is very good with MPS and CSAT, so their service score is green. In this example, green is good, amber is okay, and red is bad. So we can see that they're doing well on service. They're not doing so well on calls and average time on call work, and they are a bit mixed on credits and knowledge. So that's how the DNA profile builds up and gives you a kind of one high-level score, but the ability to drill down and understand it a little more. Based on that, you can schedule some action. So here we're saying, okay, bills is a problem for billing agent A. So we're going to show them a piece of content that helps them understand more about billing. And calls is also a problem, so I'm going to put something in their diary so that a coach can talk to them and try and help them improve their handling of calls. Skills analysis, we spoke about briefly on the previous slide, but really we're looking at how well related any two things that we measure are to each other. So you can load lots of different KPIs into the system. It's not a fixed set. You can determine the ones that you want. But then we'll work out, these things are related. There seems to be a correlation there. And that will allow us to do more investigation to say, okay, is it really the case that people who have got really high average handling times also have better customer satisfaction scores? Is that true? Is that just a coincidence? Is there a causation there? Okay, if there is, what do we do about that? Some examples. Different correlation. I think most people probably know about what a correlation is, but what we're looking for is those ones on the right, the strong positive correlations where improving one thing will lead to an improvement to the other. So that's a very quick run through of performance DNA from a very high level. I'm going to move on more now to talk about integration. Is anyone have any questions about performance DNA itself before we go into that? So I'm conscious that's quite quick and we'll whiz through it fairly quickly. Anybody any questions about what it is and how it works? Okay.
So performance DNA, is that across all three platforms?
So it's across PureEngage at the moment and Connect as well. It's not currently across PureCloud.
Okay.
So now we'll talk about integrating with performance DNA. As you can probably imagine, given what performance DNA does, it's starting to raise data. The more information it's got, the better decisions it can make, the better informed decisions it can help you make about your agents. So obviously we try and pull as much information from other Genesis systems as we can, but that's always going to be better if there's information from your systems, maybe from HR systems or CRM systems, other things like that. If you can add that information in, it gives us a bit of a richer picture and we can make much better decisions. And the key to getting that data in is APIs. So there's an extensive set of APIs, and they're all REST-based. So hopefully most people here are aware of REST-based services. It's very similar to the way a lot of the other Genesis services work. There's OAuth for security again. I think there's been lots of presentations on that already this week. And we're always happy to look at extending and improving that API. So there's a number of cases where we've had a customer with a specific requirement that's not been covered in the API, and we've extended that and made it available to everybody so that they can have an integration. So if you have that, certainly feel free to ask and we can look at getting it on the roadmap. Over on the left you can see this is a Swagger page showing all of the performance DNA APIs, and we might have a look at that a little bit later to try and play with some. But if you don't know, Swagger is a fairly standard specification for exposing REST APIs, and it lets you explore them quite nicely. You can drill down into them and understand, these are the calls I can make, this is the sort of data I need to send in. You can often send test calls to say, okay, if I send this in, what do I get back out? So if you're going to program against an API, it's a really nice way to work. And a lot of Genesis APIs, particularly the Engage ones, and use Swagger, and I think it's fairly common. This slide just gives us a quick overview of some of the sources of data for performance DNA. Now this is a PureConnect specific slide. There may be other sources, particularly around Engage, but thinking about PureConnect here, we've got the cloud service in the middle. Performance DNA access to our web interface, so that's how users interact with it. But we get data from PureConnect and CIC. I've been pulling information out around average handle time, things like that, that will be useful. We also have the ability to push information to predictive routing. There is another session on that later this afternoon, which is in the Engage strand, but if you're interested in predictive routing, it's probably worth going to that. We can also integrate with some learning management systems. For example, Moodle-based ones, we can link that in, and that allows you to, rather than building assessments in Performance DNA, you can use your existing courses in your learning management system, but still benefit from the insights and the informed decision making that Performance DNA gives you. And then we've got this one at the bottom, other data sources, which is potentially vast. So it's one little box on this slide, but really we can consume data from any sources that you want to integrate with. Typical ones that customers use today is the sales systems, HR systems, customer feedback systems. So if you've got one of those services where it sends a text and you get a score back, we can link that back through, and many other different sources. And that's where we'll focus on getting them in through the API.
Just a question on top where you have PureConnect CIC, is just web services, so that roots up, or is it still gets run? Or I'm misunderstanding.
So what we do, we use the, so it's using our REST API from PureConnect to pass the data into us. So as we go through it, we'll talk about 2 or 3 of the APIs. And actually what we're doing for PureConnect integration is using those same APIs and some stuff on the PureConnect CIC side to call those. I'll talk to you a bit more about that as we go through. But yeah, so it's calling our REST services from CIC. And yeah, there's an acronym there, I think that might use so to get the data out of CIC, but I'm not sure. So, we're going to talk in a bit more detail now about 2 of the key sources of data for Performance DNA. And really, most of the data we want can be broken into these 2 things. It's either organisational data, so this is information about your agents, who they are, who they report to, how long they've been with the company, anything like that, that just gives us some context about what performance we should expect from them. And again, that can vary massively by different customers, different organisations. Some people just have a very simple business unit, team, agent, that's all they have. Other people have a really rich set of data, so they know when an employee started, they know who their manager was, they know which region they're in, but they also know which development program they're on. So is this person on the fast track, or are they expected just to carry on as they are? Performance DNA lets you define all that and be flexible, because obviously every organisation has a different need to report and a different way to work on the data. The other side that we'll look at in a bit more detail is KPIs, key performance indicators, and this is details about how someone's performing. It could be something that we've recorded automatically through something like CIC. It could be something that a manager's feeding back in based on performance. It could be customer feedback. Anything that's giving a number or any data around how someone's performing, we count as a key performance indicator. And again, you can define as many of those as you like in Performance DNA. Get the data loaded in, and then we can print the numbers and understand how they're related and what's the best thing to do for that agent. So we'll start by looking at organisational data. And the process of getting your organisational data into the system has 3 steps. You define what that's going to be, so you choose the field that you have, you configure it, and then you set up an import, typically an ongoing import, because organisations change all the time, so typically this will run as a daily or nightly job, and update the information about who the users are within the system and what we know about them. So, defining the data, as we said, it's a flexible model. Typically the changes to this are fairly infrequent. It's not often you say, all right, I'm going to have a new structure in my organisation, I'm not going to change who my teams are on a daily basis, I'm certainly not going to change what people's goals or organisational groups are that often. So because of that, customers tend to do changes through the UI. They don't tend to do a tight integration for this. There is the ability to see what the user fields are through the REST API, but there's also a UI where you can just log on, edit them, and that's a lot quicker given the frequency of changes. Once you've got those fields set up, and you can see there's quite a few there, you then need to configure how you're going to get that information in. And we can take information from a variety of sources, but the two main ones that people use are direct integration to WFM, so where we connect and we pull out the information about who the agents are, who their managers are, what team they've got, or a flat file integration. And you can have both or a combination of them, and you can have a number of flat files and mix things in. Flat files are quite often used for exports from stuff like CRM systems or HR systems. And yeah, most of our customers will end up with 2 or 3 different sources set up. On this screen here, so what we're looking at here, we're configuring a CSV file, so we're effectively going and just mapping columns across. We're saying this column will map to the first name field, this column will map to the last name field, and these fields will all correlate to the ones you set up on the previous screen. This changes a little bit more often than possibly, well, not often, but the organisational data that we spoke on previously is very fixed. Sometimes you get more shifts to this. If you switch between systems, or you say, oh, I still want to collect the information about who someone reports to, but now rather than using the HR system, I'm going to change to the WFM system. So we see more changes to this, but again, it's occasional, there's not regular things going on. So typically people use the UI again, rather than using the APIs. Then we go on to the import. So this is pulling the data in. This typically runs every day. Some people run it every hour if they've got a very rapidly changing organisation. But the most typical usage is every day. When overnight we run and we update who's who and what's going on. We're using the stuff we set up on the previous slide, so we're talking to WFM, to flat files, and it can be scheduled or it can be manually triggered. So we can just set it up and say, oh, I've had a big change in my organisation, it's not going to run until tonight, but I want to update the thing now. I'll go and hit a button and it will run. This stuff we typically do more integration because it runs every night. It's worth writing a custom integration. You don't want to be going in manually and running the import every day. So there are a number of options for that. You can integrate it with your systems, or we provide a command line utility which you can set up scheduled jobs, and that will automatically run in the background. We'll have a look at that a bit later. Bulk data in use. So this slide is just going to show some of the basics. Once we've set that organisational data up, this will show you where in Performance DNA that information is used. And to be honest, it's everywhere. The knowledge of how your organisation is structured and who fits where is key to understanding what training to give them and what's relevant. So there's an example. Is that big enough? Can people see that? So what we've got here is that we're automatically pulling people through. I can see most of them actually. So the list over there is pulling up the different groups. You can set up some rules and say, if someone belongs to this team, I would automatically like to assign them to this group, or I'd automatically like to be given this DNA strand, or automatically given this particular bit of content. So there's a rules engine which can run based on the information about your organisation. The other thing you can do is look at your team or your organisation broken down by those things. So here we're looking at it by team. We've got a team here, and we can see who are the high performers down in the purple, so the low performers, and we can compare that to another team. So we can instantly see here, this team's got a lot more high performers than this team. So we can focus on, okay, let's drill down into that, let's understand a bit more about these low performers. You can click on this bar and go and see who's struggling and why they're struggling. Let's understand what it is that's the problem. You can also use the organisational data for DNA assignment. So this is, if you remember the strands we built up, the DNA profile we built up earlier, this is a visualisation of that. So this is the top level where you can see the score for this particular group of agents. And then these are the different strands that make that up. So there's 3 levels to this DNA block. And as you go from left to right, you're going down in order of importance of the things. But again, you can choose your group or your demographic or your user and very quickly compare. So this is again looking at two different teams. This team's overall green, they've got some issues here, but they're generally doing quite well. This team is amber, and they're doing okay in a couple of other things, but generally there's some things they need to improve. And then you can target that training. You can say, I want to focus on this team, let me understand what those issues are. The other side of that is the key performance indicators. Slightly different process for setting those up, so this is a case of define and configure them and then run the import. So just the 2 steps rather than the 3. And this is the screen where you can define the information that you're going to bring in. You can see here there's a lot of different measures. These are literally anything that you care about within the organisation. So you'll start with some of these in the PureConnect environment. Some of these will be set up automatically pulling through from the CIC, but then you can go and add others in from other areas that you want to import the data. As well as defining what you're going to bring in, you can specify some metadata to give us a bit more insight about it. So you say how often you're going to import it. You tell us how it should be aggregated. So say it's a sales figure. Some people might want that to be averaged, so they can get average sales. Some people want it to be sum, so that as you roll up over time, you get a sum of sales. And you can choose that within the system, define how it works. Typically, this is something you set up once and then make future modifications fairly infrequently too. Currently, the APIs allow you to read out these settings, but there's no writing of them. So that's something that is probably on the roadmap for the future, but at the minute you have to set this up through the UI. Once it's set up, you want to import the data, and that is something which again we do because it's happening typically every day, maybe weekly if you've got weekly data, but it's happening on a recurrent basis. That's where typically we would use the API and we'd have a proper integration. You then want to be logging onto a screen to upload your KPI data. And so again, there's this is from the Swagger document. You can go in and see the different APIs. We can support file-based import, so you can do a direct integration to your system that you want to pull the data from, or if you've got flat files data already, we can support that as well. There's a utility we provide that allows you to pull flat file data. The preferred recommended, the recommended approach is to do a kind of REST-based integration, but you don't have to. If you don't want to, there's the data uploader. I spoke about this briefly earlier. This is a command line application, and under the HUD it's using those APIs that we spoke about already, so it can abstract that away from you. You just run the command line and you tell it, this is where the file I want to import is. You tell it how often you want it to import, and it will automatically set you up a scheduled job and handle pulling those files in. As long as you put the file in the folder on every day, it will load that file as you expect it to, or every period that you import it. It's really good for checking that the APIs work, and there are a lot of people who have file-based data lying around and don't want to write another custom integration. It's really useful for that, so it's a good tool to have around. We have a number of other integrations in Performance DNA. Learning management system is a good example of that, and there's an obvious synergy between a performance management system that wants to understand what people know and to recommend learning, and a learning management system. So we've got some good integrations with a number of LMSs to pull information about their courses and show them as content within PDNA, but also to link that all the way and to be able to provide scores back from assessments into learning management systems. Some people like to use Performance DNA to drive other people, saying no, everything's going to go through our learning management system. The agents will do all their learning there, and only the managers and the supervisors will log on to Performance DNA and see how people are getting on. We can support both groups. It's another REST-based integration, and obviously there's a lot of different LMSs out there. So we're happy to add support for others as and when the need arises. Moodle seems to be the most popular one generally, but there are a lot of others, and yeah, if you've got something else you're interested in, feel free to talk to me afterwards, and we'll see if it's on the roadmap or if not, maybe regularly on there. Predictive routing is another integration that we've got. So once performance DNA is running, you've got the strand set up, we can provide that as an input to predictive routing to help inform the routing that it does. So consider an example where an agent's not getting many calls, predictive routing thinks that they won't provide a good outcome, so they don't get much work to do. Then they do some training in PDNA. We identify some areas they need to improve in, they do that training, they complete an assessment and show that they're doing better, and their scores go up. We provide that information back into the predictive routing model, and predictive routing could start to give them more calls again. There is another session on that at 1:45 today, so if you're interested in that, feel free to come along. There will be a bit of crossover around performance DNA and what it is, but there will be more detail on predictive routing. So, I was at this point just going to do a quick whiz through of the. I need to drag this along. So I'm going to go quickly through the Swagger UI and show you some of the different bits that we've got. And maybe run some test calls. Is that live? Can anyone see that? Yes. So, user field is a good example. So, and it's a good way of looking at how you can use Swagger to understand a bit about the API. So, if we go to this page, and on any performance DNA installation, if you go to API/Swagger, you'll get taken to this page, and you can see all of the APIs that are available there. There's a number of different ones. The ones we've spoken about today, they're obviously KPIs, raw data. Stuff like DNA scores, that's very useful. If you want to pull out the scores that we've generated and use them in other systems, there's an API there for you to do that as well. You can get test results, you can understand a bit about users and things like that. There's quite a rich variety of things. And if anyone's got any particular things they'd like to ask about, I'll put your hand up now, or we can talk about them afterwards. But if we have a look at all data, for example, so you remember we talked about those user fields, the ones you can define different fields for organisation. If I go into this user fields call, I can see that what I need to do is pass in no data, and I should get back an example of the user fields that are set up. So if I try it out, I need to log in, it's secured. Typically that'd be through OAuth, because this is a demo. I could have set using basic auth, so I can log on here. And hopefully we can see from the live system, and this is my demo system, we can go and see the fields. In fact, we go here on the user fields. So while we're waiting for it to launch, I will log on here. So what we can see, we've made a call, we can see the request, and we've got back, here's the list of user fields that are currently set up in performance DNA, login ID, first name, last name, a number of others. And if we go back to that system settings screen, these fields here should match exactly those fields. And if I was to have another one in, so if we do DevCon19 demo and add it, that's added, oh, wrong tab, that's added in the user field, and then if I go and make this call again, we should see that field showing straight up. So there it is, DevCon19 demo. So it's really easy to use the API and explore and figure out what it does using Swagger. But if you've got any questions, there's also the ability to look for documentation or raise a support call. KPIs we spoke about as well, so there's a number of different ones you can look at there. A lot of them are gets, and then the ability to post the data up. So that's the ability to say, all right, this is my weekly data or my daily data. These are the KPIs I'm loading. Has anyone got any more questions around these particular APIs or other things that they'd like to talk about or ask about? Okay. In which case, we'll have a quick look at some of the other bits of the UI, some of the things we touched on briefly. And then we can go to any questions. So let's have a look at an assessment. So this is an example of some assessments. So this user has been assigned 4 different things to do. I think they're all assessments. Yeah, they are. So there's really 2 types of information you can have here. One could be an assessment, which is a test to understand what's going on. One could be a knowledge, a piece of content to say, this is something that helps you with your learning. So here, this user's been assigned the selling skills assessment, so we can go in here and just take the test. I think it's quite a short one. If it's not, we'll skip through it. And this one, before you can actually take the test, there is a knowledge news link to it. So it gives you a bit of information first, it should help you learning, and then the test will be to make sure you've taken that information in and understood it. So if we open this knowledge nudge, there's a small click through on selling skills, so we can go through here. And it's we won't watch the videos because I'm sure you don't want to be given particular selling skills training. But you go through and you click through and complete some content, you view some videos, read some information, and in theory, at the end of that, you know everything you needed to take this assessment. So we're going to close that back down. Now I've taken the knowledge nudge, I'm allowed to start the assessment. And these assessments can be built within the application. So you can build assessments that are custom for you. You can write the questions. You can decide how the background looks, what the options are, the different question types. This one is quite a long assessment. It's got 12 questions, so we'll just go through very quickly. There's various different question types, so as you'd expect in any assessment, you can have free text questions, you can have ones with radio buttons or multi-selects. There's what we call an image-based question where you get an image comes up and you've got to drop a pin and maybe select a particular part of an image. So we'll go through and see if there's any of those in this example. So these are all radio buttons. Just going through. And I'm probably doing terribly on the assessment because I'm not really reading the questions. So this one's got an attached video somewhere, although it says it has, the video doesn't appear to be showing. But it's multi-select. And here there's an attached conversation, and then you've got to pick some images to choose the right answer. So there's a lot of different ways you can go through and customize these assessments, make them interesting. This one's got a customer call, so you can listen to the customer call and then choose the right answer. Let's finish that for now. And you could run out all the questions it's telling me I should continue, but I'm going to skip out and I'll obviously get a low score. So now we can see selling skills complete, and I scored 25% on it. Oh no, it's 25% complete, it wants me to go back. Some tests are set up so you can only go in once. This one's set up so you can go in multiple times and do it again. Let's look at some of the analysis now that you get out. So the user progress graph is a good place to start. So this lets you track a user's progress over time, or a group of users' progress over time. So we can see here we've got a number of different users who've got different scores, and you can see the different coloured bands in the background are the thresholds that have been defined for different levels of performance. So red is poor performance, amber is kind of okay, green is high performance, and purple is suspiciously good performance, I guess you might describe it as. And you can choose which users appear here, and you can look at different bits of information. So here we're looking at strands, so we're looking at the sales role that we defined, and looking at the different scores. And we can see that Jason Sanguini is doing very well. He's consistently very good. He's been a high performer for a long time. But someone down here, for example, we've got Sean Sweeney. His performance has not been particularly good. But we can also see this little diamond here. So we can see that on the 7th of May, he took the assessment selling skills, and then the next day his score jumped up quite considerably. So that indicates to us that that selling skills assessment was quite useful. And if you look here, there's a couple of people who've done the same, or done assessments and their scores have improved. So this lets you get a historical view of what people have been doing. It lets you have a look at different interactions that have happened and whether they made a difference to someone's performance. We show a number of learning items here, so assessments and knowledge notice directly from DNA, but also from Training Manager, which is another Genesis product that links quite tightly into PDMA. You can see if training sessions or meeting sessions were scheduled, we can pull that through and show those on the graph as well. As you'd expect, you can choose the different users here, you can choose the different strands, or you can just look at the raw data. So if I was to go and look at the raw data, and let's have a look at average handling time for these same people. We'll obviously get some different numbers, but you can go down and look at that, and that might be of interest to you as well. So here we've got some very fluctuating average handling times. I think this data is simulated, it's been randomised. I don't think this is genuine customer data, so that's why the numbers are very much all over the place. But again, you can see, did any of these things that people did they have an impact on their average handling time? In this case, probably not. So that's the user progress graph. Another tool that's quite useful is the DNA comparison. So this lets you define a group of users, and we saw this slide a bit earlier, and then understand the differences between them. And here we can see, so this is a team in London managed by a man called Frank Lampard, and this team is also in London managed by a lady called Kelly Smith, and we can see Kelly Smith's team aren't doing as well as Frank Lampard's, and we might want to drill into that a bit more. So we can click here, and we can see, oh, well, there's this red here, let me find out more about that. You can drill in, and you can actually go and see the individual scores for those people. And we can see that Chantel McNally's got a score of 3, and there's also some information about why that might be. In this case, a value outside the expected range, so it's a very low score. That could be because she's doing very badly, or it could be that there's a data problem. So we put warnings like that on if they're outside. When you specify the KPI, you specify a minimum maximum expected range for the data, and if it's outside that, we'll put a warning on it, just so you don't take any actions based on data that was not correct. Some other things you can do with this, let me try and find an example. Once you've got that, you can actually take some direct actions. So I didn't see any assigned directly to this strand, so I'm going to change strands. So we're going to look at quality now rather than just sales. When we look at quality, we can see a very different picture emerging. So Frank Lampard's team are really good on quality, Kelly Smith's not so much. And what you should be able to do, but it's not working in my demo, you should be able to actually go in and drill down and assign actions based on the scores. So you should be able to say, this learning item is recommended. It's possible my demo environment got cleared, and it's not on there, but I'll try and find an example from another view. So that's the DNA comparison. The other option is view filtered DNA, and this is a similar sort of thing. It lets you group by teams or different demographic groups, but then rather than showing you the strand breakdown, it shows you people that come to the threshold, so it lets you easily isolate who are the high and low performers. And here we can see this team, Kelly Smith's team, have got quite a lot of people in the low performing group. It's 36% of people in their team are performing badly. And so we can go in and see who they are, and we can see a bit about why they're doing so badly. We can then maybe isolate them. So, okay, we're interested in Colton. Colton Murray, let's see his precise score. So was Colton doing really badly? We can see he's got red everywhere. The only thing he's okay with is hold time, but there's lots to improve there. There's someone else, if you look at Gillian, it might be that she's got different numbers, but again, overall her performance is poor, but she needs to focus more on knowledge and less on the calls. And you can keep drilling down into the data, slicing it different ways, just to get you some insights on it. But then the key part is that performance DNA will, in the background, be recommending actions based off of that. So there's not an easy demonstration to show you it in real time, but running in the background, we do analysis of these things. We look at what's going on, and then we will automatically assign assessments to people who are performing poorly based on the correlation. So if we recognise that people who've got poor call scores also tend to have problems with their product knowledge, or their something like that, then we might push an assessment that will improve product knowledge in the hope that it will improve their call score. And then once that's happened, you can see back on the progress graph that was pushed, and hopefully you'll see the corresponding uptick in the scores. That's not quite well right, I think it'll be more zoom. Anyway. Then we're going all the way back to start. So we spoke about predictive routing, and all this stuff really is a conclusion. Performance DNA is really driven by data. The more information you can get into the system, the better the insights it will give you, the better the recommendations and the actions that it will take for your agents. Because of that, there's a lot of different APIs, lots of ways of getting data into the system, and the more you do that, the more you integrate your sources of information with it, the better performance DNA will work for you. Has anyone got any questions? Okay, thanks everybody. I'll let you go a little bit over to lunch.